Back at you with another destination wedding BAI Bridal Bootcamp question. Today's question comes from Danielle. She is saying, hey, do photographers normally charge their typical rates as they would if they were doing a wedding in their home location, in addition to all the travel expenses, room and airfare, when they're doing a destination wedding? So this is a question that we get a lot, and it really ultimately depends on the specific photographer and their experience that they have, where they want to take their portfolio. You may or may not know, I used to be a destination wedding photographer before I got into the planning side of things. Now we're planning destination wedding events. But when I was a photographer, I really wanted to get into doing destination weddings. And so the first wedding I took, I think I did it for just the cost of the trip, pay my airfare, pay my hotel, and absolutely I go to all-inclusive resort for 3 days and spend a time with you guys and cover all the events and whatnot. It sounded like it was great. People really don't take into consideration is if you're a photographer and you're doing this full time as your profession. I was shooting in between 40 to 60 weddings every single year in the US. For me to take one destination wedding, let's say it's on a Saturday, there's a 3-night minimum stay required at the resort. So, and I do have to get there. I usually got there 2 days beforehand because God forbid if something happened to my flight the day beforehand, I can't arrive the day of the wedding. Like, that's not possible as a photographer. So I have to be there. So I had to arrive 2 days beforehand. I left the day after. It's a 3-night stay. Let's say it was a Saturday wedding. So I'm arriving Thursday. So Thursday, I come home Sunday. What I gave up there was I gave up 3 weddings at home that weekend. I gave up a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday wedding, which is in wedding season. That's typically every single weekend for me as a wedding photographer. So I gave up shooting 3 weddings at home in one location, being home, in exchange for shooting 1 wedding in destination. And the couples don't really think about it that way. As a photographer, you think about it that way. But when you're planning a wedding as a couple, you're just like, well, hey, yeah, I'll pay for their trip. They're getting something out of this, and they think it's an even exchange. But if a photographer is doing this as a full-time business, it doesn't make sense to do a destination wedding in exchange for just the rates, just their regular rates in addition to the cost of travel, because they're giving up an opportunity cost of missing out on other weddings at home. So where they can make 3 times the amount of money in one weekend, they're making 1 times that money. Doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. Actually makes more sense from a photographer standpoint to charge more for a destination wedding because you're missing out multiple weddings in one weekend. That doesn't mean that there aren't deals out there. Like I said, I really wanted to shoot a destination wedding. What I quickly realized was I wasn't just shooting the wedding day. I was getting around there and I was shooting a welcome party event. And then I was shooting all day on the wedding day, which destination wedding days typically lasted a lot longer than weddings in the US. So as a result, I had a ton more photos and a ton more post-production work to do. There was that to consider. And then a lot of times I would even shoot the day after, right? We would go on a catamaran or we'd do a morning session. We got great content from it. Don't get me wrong. I loved going to these parties. It was great. That's where I learned destination weddings are just completely different than local weddings. And it is norm for photographers to charge their normal rates plus their travel expenses. But I would say it's probably even more normal for them to charge even more on top of that because of the opportunity cost lost. Another thing to think about is most resorts, and this is the way really all resorts should work, but most resorts you can avoid the outside vendor fee. If you bring a photographer with you and they're staying at the resort, you can avoid the outside vendor fee that the resort charges because the resort's earning revenue on them staying, and really, in reality, how would the resort know? They can't stop a guest from using a camera at your wedding, right? So I said it before, I say it all the time. If you're bringing a photographer with you, just put them on your guest list. Tell them it's a cousin that's shooting your wedding and as a gift to you. And I would absolutely fight as much as you humanly possibly can if they try to charge you any outside vendor fees, because that is absolute garbage. And there are some resorts that are doing that. So I'm very open and honest with my feelings on that. I think it's garbage. That's my take. Hopefully that helps a little bit with your position question.